When I started as the boss of the police, I was in a part of Paris with a street called Rue Saint-Antoine. This street has lots of small streets and corners going out from it. The houses in these small streets are mostly lived in by poor people who are very close to being very poor or having no food. They might join any trouble or help in stealing or hurting others. In one of these small streets, there was a man named Jean Monnet. He was quite old but still strong. He was a widower, which means his wife had died, and he lived with his only daughter, Emma, on the 4th floor of a building in one of the small streets. People said he had made a lot of money in business but never spent it. They said all his money would go to Emma when he died. Emma was a pretty girl, and because she would inherit her dad's money, she had many people interested in marrying her. But she thought she could wait until she really loved someone before getting married. One Sunday in June, Emma got some money from her dad to go on a trip with friends to see the fountains at Versailles. It was a sunny day, and there were lots and lots of people at the fountain. They all wore different colors, so it looked like a big, colorful rainbow. At 4 o'clock, the big fountain shot up lots of water, and everyone was amazed and happy. Emma was especially happy because she had never seen anything like it before. And it was really nice to meet a man who could explain everything and everyone, like who was important in Paris. He was friendly and well-dressed, and it felt special that he paid attention to them. In the evening, he would suggest they all go home together in a carriage, and he would pay for everything. When he gently held her hand and whispered to her, asking where he could meet her again, she felt different from before. But she couldn't tell him where she lived because she thought he might not like it. So instead, she agreed to meet him at the Jardin d'Eté next Sunday and dance only with him. She met him on Sunday and many more times after that, until her dad started to worry. He noticed she was often out in the evenings, which wasn't like her. He loved his money, but he loved his daughter more. She was the most important person in his life after his wife died. Emma was everything to him. People thought he was mean and greedy, but he didn't care what they thought. He was upset about Emma's behavior and asked her where she went so often. She just said she didn't realize she was out so much. This didn't satisfy him, so he decided to keep an eye on her. He did this with the help of an old friend who now worked as what he called an inspector, though some people called him a spy. But whatever you called him, he was good at his job. He kept a close watch on the young lady and found out she was often meeting a man. Despite the inspector's skills, this man managed to escape without being seen. This made the inspector very confused and frustrated. Imagine working for the government, being famous for your success, and then failing at something small like this private matter you only took on as a favor to a friend. He tried to motivate himself by thinking about how well he was getting paid, but it didn't work. He followed them to a corner, but by the time he got there, they were gone. This was too much. Felt like they were mocking him. Should he ask for help from another spy? No, that would mean admitting defeat, and he couldn't stand that. He had to solve this on his own, even though it was very confusing. To his trained eye, The man didn't look like a nice gentleman as he did to Emma. He seemed more like a sneaky person dressed up fancy. Something was fishy, and he needed to figure it out. But how? He decided to go talk to old Manette. Maybe he could help figure things out. Lost in thought about the strange situation, he walked slowly to the old man's house to discuss things with him. On the way, he noticed a commotion in the street. He joined the crowd, hoping to catch some bad guys he could punish. He forgot about his mystery for a moment. The crowd had gathered because two taxi drivers were arguing about who had the right to go first. After a lot of yelling, one drove away, leaving the other feeling like he had won, even though he didn't get any customers. As the crowd started to leave, the detective saw Miss Manette walking with her secret lover. A lamp above them made them easy to see. When he looked at the man's face, he couldn't believe it. He let out a loud "wow" because he had figured something out. First, he had discovered something important. Second, he didn't feel so bad about not noticing before. Maybe those two reasons were enough. He hurried to tell Manette what he had found out this time. After a long talk where he praised himself for being such a great friend, the detective told Manette some worrying news. He said Manette's daughter was meeting a very bad person in Paris. This person was so clever that even though the police knew what he was up to, they couldn't catch him doing anything wrong because he always changed how he looked. Before leaving, the detective promised Manette they would catch this person and put him in jail. When Emma came back home, her dad told her what he had heard. He didn't say where he got the information. He just said he knew she had been with someone who would hurt her and then leave her. He begged her, with tears in his eyes, to promise she would never see this person again. Emma was shocked. She couldn't believe what her dad was saying about the person she thought was perfect. She cried and promised never to see him again and to try to forget about him. Her dad hugged her and said he believed her. He explained that people thought he was rich, so they might try to take advantage of Emma to get his money. He decided she couldn't leave the house for the next 6 months to keep her safe. He was sure the man was more interested in stealing his money than being with Emma. So Emma stayed in the rooms on the 4th floor and wasn't allowed to go out for several days. During those days, Emma tried hard to forget about the person she cared for. She thought if she could see him one last time and say goodbye, she might be able to forget him eventually. But to do that, she needed to see him again. She figured out that while she couldn't leave, there was a chance he could come in. Women always find ways to get what they want, especially when they've set their hearts on something. Emma realized that even though she couldn't go out, he could come in. She convinced the old woman who helped around the house sometimes to deliver a short note. The note said her dad was sick and went to bed early. It asked him to come over at 11 o'clock the next evening. Her dad would be asleep, and she would listen for 3 taps on the door. The old woman delivered the note, and he sent back a message promising to come. He had been planning this for months and didn't want to miss the chance. He even told 2 friends about his plan and promised them some of the money he hoped to get. Everything was going well with his plan until the inspector got involved. As soon as he found out who the man was, he tried to catch him. He knew the man would probably visit Manette's house soon. He had already read the letters before the old woman delivered them, and he thought the plan was a good one. One evening, the inspector asked for my help to catch a famous robber named Despreaux. He had planned a robbery near Rue Saint-Antoine, and the inspector told me all about it. So, at about 10:30, I waited with the inspector and 4 other men where we could see Despreaux pass. At 11 o'clock, right on time, Despreaux and his 2 friends started going up the stairs. The 2 friends were supposed to wait for a while, and then Despreaux would come to the door and let them in. After waiting for about half an hour, they were let in and we followed them upstairs. The inspector had a key, so we quietly let ourselves in and stood in the hallway so no one would see us. After a few minutes, we heard Emma scream and old Manette yelling for help. When we went into the rooms, we saw Emma on the ground, and one of the men was trying to stop her from screaming by covering her mouth. But the way he was doing it could have hurt her badly. The old man had been pulled out of bed, and Despreaux was threatening him with a knife, demanding to know where he kept his money and valuable things. When Despreaux saw us, he looked like he wanted to fight, but since his friends didn't help him, he let us tie him up. He said he wished we had come half an hour later, so he wouldn't have been caught. Despreaux was later found guilty of the crime. He was sent to prison for life and is now in Brest serving his sentence. Emma got married to a good man not long after, and old Manette was surprisingly generous on the occasion.